the Mahoning Valley Daily Podcast.
All right, joining me today on the Mahoning Valley Daily Podcast, we have a man who might need no introduction for some of you, but if he happens to, we have here with us today Mr. Jacob Harver. Hi, how you doing?
Howdy.
And you are owner of the Federal?
Yeah, I partner on the Federal with the Martini Brothers, and then own the Knox Building and Lemon Grove. Got my start 2 doors down where O'Donnell's is now. That was the original Lemon Grove cafe and coffee shop, music
Best
venue.
place ever.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, hopefully the best is yet to come, because we've been in the building here for the past 10 years and been working on that. We're here on the 3rd floor in the Crest Room. Lemon Grove 3.0 coming to the 2nd floor. It's still a work in progress. But
I have been up here for an event or two. It is a fantastic space.
Thank you.
And, if you've been downtown, you've seen this guy. But the reason we are here to talk to him today is because we have a little bike project that I'd like to talk about, a bike trail project that he has been intimately working with, and I wanted to get the details out to you guys so you can maybe weigh in and see what you think, because it seems like it's going to be a net positive for the community, and it's going to tie this community into a lot of other areas of the state. And tell me a little bit about just the generality of what you got.
All right, so I'm at YSU going to get my master's, which has been a great process in the applied history program, which is done out of the Steel Museum right behind us here. And Dr. Tom Leary is my main professor with that. And I, taken some applied history classes, and I realized that it kind of intersected just enough with something I'm always interested in anyways, and that is doing long distance bike journeys on dedicated trails. I hate being around cars, but if it's a dedicated trail, I'll do it all day.
Way safer.
Yeah, a lot safer and more interesting too, because you're out in nature. But one of my other favorite things about doing that is the historic signage. Like, you learn a lot about the history of an area, and even though, obviously I have to read a lot for school, I'm actually would prefer learning about something in the actual environment. I think it sticks a lot more. Like, for instance, I was never interested in Lewis and Clark, vaguely. I always knew the name, being American, but it wasn't until riding across Missouri on the Katy Trail along the Missouri River, and you saw, they stopped here on this night, and what the relations were with the Native Americans already there, that, being in the environment, things made a lot more sense.
Brought it into reality. You could put yourself in that situation and understand the story all that much better.
Exactly. Yeah. So thinking about how does that apply to our area here, and we're kind of lacking directly in downtown Youngstown in terms of being connected by long distance trails. However, we are surrounded by some great ones. The Stavage Trail that goes east to west between Struthers and Newcastle. And then to the west of us between Ravenna and Akron, there's the Portage County Hike and Bike Trail that turns into the Summit County Freedom Trail. And if you take both of those together, they follow the old Pennsylvania and Ohio Canal line, which was constructed in like 1837 and lasted until the 1870s, but then the railway age took over and it became a railroad. But it connects that whole region. Well, we're the missing piece in having a dedicated active transportation trail between Struthers and Ravenna. And learning more about the canal, there's some great, in Kent, there's some great historical signage along the trail that talks about the canal, and that's where I saw the maps and realized, we can be connected by this trail that already
Except for
existed.
this one spot, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what you're missing.
So we got to build the 45 miles to connect Struthers through Youngstown, Girard, Niles, Warren, Newton Falls, and then you come to West Branch State Park, which is really nice.
Right.
And then Ravenna's right there, and then boom, Ravenna, you're good, clean sailing. But what's cool, if you connect that, it would intersect with the Western Reserve Greenway Trail.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You can go all the way up to Ashtabula. There's 2 missing links in that to be able to connect to Lisbon all the way to Ashtabula. One of them is between Niles and Warren, and I actually just talked to the Parks Commissioner for Trumbull County. He says it's work in progress, that they'll be connecting that soon. The other one is the one that's been somewhat controversial in the news. That's the one that Catrona's been fighting of the case of using eminent domain so that Mill Creek Metro Parks can acquire the 6 miles needed to connect the trail where it goes between Latonia and Lisbon, and where it goes between essentially Columbiana to all the way up to Ashtabula.
Right. And so for anybody who isn't up to date on that story, that is local representative Al Catrona put something into this year's budget at the State House trying to make it illegal to use eminent domain to take over those final couple of miles to help complete a trail that essentially goes from Lake Erie all the way down to the Ohio River. And we had our our metro parks here in Mill Creek Park, and they were at the State House, or they were at least getting their lawyers together and saying that it was an unconstitutional ban on usage of eminent domain. So it looks like it's going to be going forward, and we're able to hopefully connect that finally, because you said the Warren is going to be maybe resolving itself. Mm-hmm. Nice.
And so a big part of the project is, like, I say this half jokingly, like, I'm not for recreation. It's not about recreation, oh, we're going to have a nice time on the trail. To me, the most important part is transportation for people.
Sure.
That especially in an area like Youngstown, some of the, the economically struggling communities, like, there needs to be alternative between having your own car. And just for, like, the safety of people, you go to, especially some of the suburbs around here, there's no sidewalks even, and so
they
it's
weren't
not
even
accessible.
thought of when they were made.
Exactly.
I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Columbus, and I commuted as a cyclist there, and it was amazing. And it was because you could. It was also because there were people on the road that were more aware, because there were more cyclists around. That's kind of why you're saying that maybe you have to have dedicated trails that you can lead into from your normal surface streets. Mm-hmm. That'll be more of the large veins of getting from place to place, or general area to general area.
Exactly. I think that's something interesting about, you have, like you said, the main veins, but then you also have, they call them like spur trails, where it can jut off in neighborhoods. And ideally, those should be dedicated, actually separate from traffic, because you can't trust motorists. Honestly, like, people talk about worried about the future of.
It's only gotten worse and worse.
Oh, it is. You have to assume either people are trying to hit you or they're text messaging. That's the
either way, they're coming at you.
Exactly.
More and more than ever. And there was actually, I think someone just died. A famous guy in sports, I believe, just got hit by somebody on the road and passed away from his injuries. It's terrible. So, having that in mind, like trying to have safe ways to get around, what is the next steps? When do you get to actually lay groundwork? Because is there a possibility even for some infrastructure dollars from this large new package? Are there provisions in there that would facilitate this type of project?
So luckily, like I said, this is my project for why I should get my master's, but obviously I don't have the pool to do a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project. Luckily, the people who do, Eastgate Regional Council of Governments, it serendipitously coincided with them doing this Mahoning River Corridor project. So back in December, when I started work on this project, I saw a thing come up about that Eastgate Regional Council of Governments and MS Consultants is looking for people's ideas about the river corridor. So I messaged them saying, hey, I'm working on this project, and I actually presented it to MS Consultants over Zoom back in December, and they dug some of the ideas about it. And so they've been working on this project that MS Consultants is officially proposing to Eastgate to adopt for the river corridor, and in that is this actual Mahoning Valley Greenway Trail that would connect Stavage to Ravenna.
So you essentially have to give your idea to someone who is putting it together within a larger package to then propose to legislation.
I mean, however it works, I think they were already kind of thinking about those things, but I think they said that my project was helpful in kind of informing as well, because regardless of the infrastructure, like I said, I'm also into the culture and history side of it, that we should not only build this trail, but we should also interpret the culture and history along it. So like I was mentioning, in Kent, they talk about the canals that went along there. The Katy Trail in Missouri talks about Lewis and Clark. So we have a great opportunity here in Youngstown, because this trail goes right through our industrial corridor, which in conjunction with the Steel Museum documenting that history, the idea is to bring the museum to the trail, but also bringing visitors from the trail to the museum. And kind of that's what applied history is all about, actually bringing it into the community. So yeah, it's cool that they're actually working on the infrastructure, and so hopefully they got that part that will actually get done.
Yeah.
And then we can keep pushing to actually have the historic signage. And that coincides with something else. Tim Ryan proposed in 2019 the Steel Valley National Heritage Area. So that's through the National Park Service to declare this area a National Heritage Area, which would allow for some federal dollars for that kind of culture and historical interpretation along the trail. So hopefully that actually happens.
Well, it's completely necessary. I mean, how else are we supposed to be able to be connected to our history on a day-to-day basis? Mm-hmm. We need those reminders, and we need them to be around us visually, auditorially, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, when it's such a cool time for the Mahoning River too, because we're able to bring it back environmentally. Because we all love the steel mill area here. That's what makes us. But at the same time, they're just dumping like raw
Lots
shit
of
into the
pollution
river.
in there.
Yeah, exactly.
You got that right.
So we can now have a future where hopefully we're bringing back the economy too, with green jobs. I mean, obviously got to see what. In some ways, electric cars aren't as green as they say they are in some ways, but
Correct.
at least we're going the right direction of having
Sure.
environmentally friendly industry.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, documenting our history and also cleaning up the river and being able to bring people to it. Like I said, not just for recreation, but of course, for recreation, but also transportation, also history, also culture. So I think it enables a few different things to happen.
It does. And I think it's probably part of what I would consider to be a larger mission I would hope a lot of people are into, which is we got to reconnect the city with the suburbs. And if you can have an understanding between those two places, then this is going to be a more prosperous and united community. It can't be one versus the other. It can't be your really great idea stops at my backyard because I just want to have my little piece of whatever. It has to be a more communal outlook, and to understand that these people, in $1 million houses are only a couple miles away from people who might not be able to afford lunch.
Yeah.
So this is a community, and we have to rise and fall together, and I think these types of projects are totally spurious of that attitude.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's work in progress, and was something that really kind of hit me doing it so far is thinking about the Mahoning River communities and there's always been that folklore of Youngstown and Warren being so separate and so divided, and legend has it that's why the Mahoning Valley Scrappers are named that too, because the two communities can get along. But when you look at it, when you just take away the boundaries and you just look at the river, you see how connected our communities are, and they have been since ancient times. Native American trails went along that river that were documented when the first European settlers came here. There was already established trails going back millennia.
Right. It's common sense, human nature. We're following the land.
Follow the river, yep.
That's right. And we are all of one community. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for being on the show.
My
And we'll
pleasure.
talk to you soon. Hopefully get an update in the future.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Thanks.
Yep.